Hi, I'm Dr. Penny Reed. I'm an independent consultant in the area of assistive technology and special education. I'm here today to talk to you about the quality indicators for assessing students' need for assistive technology. Let's look at the quality indicators. The introduction to these quality indicators reminds us that assessment for assistive technology needs is really a process, and it's always conducted by a team, never a single individual. And our purpose is to identify the tools and strategies that will help this child move forward, meet their IEP goals, and make progress in the curriculum. Now, assistive technology evaluation is part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act requirements for what school districts need to provide if needed. Not every student with an IEP or with a disability needs an assistive technology assessment. The place where we can make decisions about assistive technology without an assessment is in the IEP, where IEP teams are required to consider a child's need for assistive technology. If, however, during the consideration process, they realize that they don't have enough information, then they may want to plan for and provide an assistive technology assessment. Let's look at the specific quality indicators. There are 7 quality indicators in this area. The first one reminds us that we need procedures for all aspects of AT assessment. Procedures are critical to ensure consistency and compliance with the law, make sure that we do the same thing the same way each time that it's needed. The second quality indicator reminds us that an assistive technology assessment is always conducted by a team with the collective knowledge and skills that they need to answer the questions that need to be addressed. The third quality indicator requires that we have a functional assessment in the customary environment. This wording comes directly from the Individuals with Disability Education Act. IDEA has contained this wording since 1990. The reason we want to do a functional assessment in the child's customary environments is that functional assessment provides much more useful information and information that makes our recommendations more likely to be applicable and usable. The fourth quality indicator tells us that we need to complete an AT assessment within reasonable timelines. Reasonable is a flexible term, and that was chosen because each state has different requirements for the amount of time that an IEP team can take in completing a special education evaluation. And it is our recommendation that you complete an AT assessment within that same timeline. The fifth quality indicator tells us that our assessment should be based on data. It's important that we look at what we know about the student's specific tasks they have to complete, and what the environments are like where they need to complete those tasks. So we begin to develop a real picture of what might work for this student. You know, it's not enough that we saw a YouTube video that showed a great new tool and we think that would work for Oliver. It's also not enough that our school district just adopted iPads for all middle school students, and this student will have an iPad. So, gee, we better figure out what he can do on an iPad. That's not the way it works. We want to gather the data and the information about the student and base our recommendations on that. And later we can look at what's practical in terms of what our district is doing. The sixth one reminds us that we want to provide documented recommendations that are comprehensive, that are more than just a list of tools, but rather suggestions that include tools, services, strategies that might be useful to this student. And the seventh indicator reminds us that needs can be reassessed whenever it's needed. If there's a change in the student's abilities, if there's a change in the environments in which the student is learning, if there's a change in the specific tasks, we need to reassess. It also reminds us that parents and service providers at any time can request an AT assessment if they feel it's needed to help this child make progress. Now let's think about the big ideas in the area of AT assessment. I've identified 4 of them. One is that team composition really matters. The second is that procedures provide a framework for us. The third is that trial periods are essential. And the fourth is that you can do this. The reason team composition matters is that we really need to pull the team together with the specific knowledge and skills that will help us address the true questions about this child's performance and his or her need for assistive technology. Not everyone needs to know everything, but everybody needs to know something, and we need to pull those team members in so that we have collectively the knowledge we need. For instance, we almost always need to have someone who knows the curriculum that this child is expected to master. That's probably going to be a special education teacher or a general education teacher. In many cases, the child's language is part of the problem, and we need someone who knows language development. Now, that's typically a speech and language pathologist, but it could also be someone like a teacher of the hearing impaired if the student has a hearing loss and is receiving services from a teacher trained in the area of hearing impairment, because they have a very good knowledge of speech and language development also in relation to that child's disability. If we have a student whose questions include issues about sensory or motor development, then we would need to bring onto the team someone who has those skills. So we start with the IEP team, but we add those individuals who may not be part of the IEP team, but are in fact part of the service delivery team who works directly with that student. And I want to remind you that it includes the student and the student's family members, generally the parents, but any other family members for whom that would be appropriate. And we include the student as much as he or she can be included. For a very young student, that may be simply that they choose from two choices which kind of a tool they want to work with. Or we take data on how much time they stay engaged when we provide a certain tool versus another tool. Or we might have a student who can say to us, this keyboard feels so much better. I like that feedback. I like that sound when I press on the keys. Or tell us that this one's too hard. I need something easier. So the student can really inform our recommendations and be helpful to us. And we want to engage them in this assessment process at whatever ability level they have. You can bring in anyone needed to augment the knowledge of your existing team. So if, in fact, what you think you don't know is that you're not comfortable with your awareness of assistive technology tools, you can bring in someone from the district or from even outside the district that will add that knowledge to your team's information bank. The procedures are important because they really provide a framework for what you're going to do in your district. It's important for compliance. You want to know that what you're doing is in fact compliant with federal and state laws, but it's also important for consistency. It's critical that the students in this elementary school get the same type and level of assessment as a student in the middle school. So we need to have procedures so that we know what we're going to do. Procedures can support individuals and teams as they begin to think about, well, how do I start doing assistive technology assessments? And it also can decrease conflict because it provides a framework in which you're all going to work. My third big takeaway is that trial periods are really essential. It's where we focus on the child's performance in completing the meaningful tasks that are part of their familiar routines and activities. We may see performance of one type in an office somewhere when we introduce the child to a piece of equipment, but we may see it completely differently when he's in his general curriculum, working on tasks that he does every day with his peers around him. It can affect what he does, and we may find that the environment is noisier than we thought it was, or that the child is more distractible in this environment than we thought he was. A number of things. The other thing about the trial period is that it's really the only way to use recommendations from an independent evaluator. So if your district has a procedure that includes seeking AT assessments from outside agencies or independent evaluators, and you get back a suggested list of tools to purchase, this is where you apply the requirement to complete a functional evaluation in the child's customary environment. You do the trial period in the customary environment, and you would try the tools that are being recommended by the independent evaluator, and you may try other things as you see them of benefit, but it's your component of an AT assessment. And finally, just remember that trial periods really save districts money. It doesn't make sense to purchase several items because they were recommended by someone if you've never seen a student use them for meaningful tasks in their familiar routines and activities. That's an important thing to remember. I want to end my big ideas with the fact that you can do this. Thousands of school districts all over the world are providing assistive technology assessments for their students who need it. There are a myriad of training resources out there, such as AT Internet modules that I'll talk about when I get to resources, that provide really important information and can make you much more comfortable with the questions to ask and the types of tools that are available. I also highly recommend that you use some kind of forms to guide your process, such as the WADI forms, and that's from the Wisconsin Assistive Technology Initiative, or the SET forms from Dr. Joy Zavala. They really can help new teams get started, and they can ensure that you ask the right questions, and that seems to be one of the critical pieces. Several years ago in Wisconsin, as part of our work to figure out why teams weren't doing their own assistive technology assessments, we asked teams from dozens of school districts, and what we found out is that teams feel like they don't know the questions to ask. So forms like the WADI forms help you ask the right questions. What we do know is that you know the answers. They also support consistency and thoroughness. When we have following a procedure that is well tested, we can be sure that we have included all the aspects that we need to. So what are the next steps? I think you want to use some kind of a planning form to get you started. And I recommend the AT Assessment Process Planner, which we've included in this packet of materials, to guide your process. It can be the beginning of your procedures because it has step-by-step directions to do to complete an assistive technology assessment. Then I would suggest that you review and choose some forms, such as the SET forms or the WADI assessment package, and others from the SWAC website, and that's the statewide AAC program from the Colorado Department of Ed. They have an excellent website that has a variety of forms that can guide you in your process. I'm particularly fond of their school-based AT writing assessment and their school-based AAC assessment. Take a look at those. Then look at your need for training and seek resources such as those available at the AT Internet modules. You can begin that by using the Quality Indicators Self-Assessment Matrix, and let's look at the resources. So included in this packet is the Quiet Self-Evaluation Matrix for AT Assessment. Complete that. It really gives you a sense of where you are and what you might want to focus on in improving your ability to provide AT assessments. Look at the quality indicators themselves for AT assessment and think about what they mean to you and how you can implement them in your district. And certainly look at the Assistive Technology Assessment Process Planner to see if that can be helpful to you in getting started. If you've already provided some assistive technology assessments, but you want to improve your process, these tools can be equally helpful for that purpose. Finally, the additional resources I suggest to you are the WADI AT Assessment Package, the SET Framework Forms, the AT Internet modules. And this is a set of 40 modules about all aspects of assistive technology assessment, including specific things for communication, writing, reading, hearing, vision, all kinds of different areas. And it talks about not only the tools that are out there, but the kinds of questions you need to ask with case studies throughout to help you understand how they can be helpful. You can also look at the Education Tech Point resources for AT evaluation, where we have assembled a number of resources for you. I highly recommend the Communication Matrix as part of your AAC assessment. It's particularly helpful for young children and children whose language is just developing. And then finally, I've included the AT assessment resources from the Colorado Department of Education, and those are the ones at the SWAC website. I want to thank you for being with us today and remind you that there are a variety of other resources on the Quiet website. And of course, we recommend to you the Quiet book, which was published in 2015 by Cast Professional Publishing, if you want a real comprehensive guide to the assistive technology indicators. And you can always contact us with any questions at the Quiet Leadership website at gmail.com. Thank you.